Welcome to the Engerati studio. We're located at Asian Utility Week, and with us today we have got David Prins. He's the director of Etrog Consulting. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule and coming to chat with us. Do you want to first of all just give us some sort of background information on the firm and what the purpose is for your visit here?
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity to talk to you.
Thank you.
I've been, Etrog Consulting is a consulting company based in Melbourne in Australia. We specialise in energy and utilities, and particularly anything that's related to customer facing issues, be that pricing or as has been relevant quite recently as metering and smart metering. I've been in consultancy in this business for about 25 years.
Right.
A lot of my work is in Australia. Previously, I did a lot of work in the UK, and I do some work in Asia as well. So it's an opportunity here to meet people and network with people.
Absolutely. What do you think is the key to implementing a successful smart meter program? We're in Asia, so let's maybe focus on Asia a little bit. You're welcome to expand further abroad.
I think one of the keys of any successful new venture, new implementation, new project is really to understand what it is you're trying to achieve.
Right.
Too many people go into things not quite sure what they're trying to achieve, and if you're not sure what you're going to achieve, you'll never know whether you've made it.
Yeah.
So first of all, make sure your objectives are sound. The second thing is to look at who the stakeholders are.
Yeah.
Who else is involved? Electricity industry is very complex. In many countries in the world, the industry has been disaggregated. Retailers and network businesses, governments and regulators are always interested in the electricity industry, and of course the consumers, and it's all there for the consumers.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you suggest that Asian utilities get their customers on board with regards to smart metering? There's always perhaps a bit of negativity around something new. With smart metering, what are your suggestions? What are your learnings that you've taken from other projects in other countries?
I think one of the advantages in Asia as compared to the rest of a lot of the Western world at the moment is that the industry hasn't yet been reorganized and disaggregated to the extent that it has been elsewhere. So in Australia, with retailing and network businesses separated, it's a lot more difficult to get messages across. In some of the Asian countries, there is competition between retailers.
Okay.
For example, in Singapore, there are many parties involved. But in other Asian countries, you get one company that's largely still doing a lot of the work in the industry with the customers.
Right.
So there's one brand that the customers will recognise and trust, and that makes things a bit easier. Nowadays, I would use all available opportunities to talk to customers. Customers are on social media, they're on Facebook, they're on Twitter.
There's just no excuse, is there, for poor communication, really?
And I think that one of the difficulties of that, of course, is that people are time poor. If you've got some limited time available, which would you rather look at on Facebook, your favourite sports team or your electricity company?
Yeah, well,
and that's one of the challenges.
Exactly, yeah. Where do you see customer engagement in the next, 5 years' time within this region?
I think it's important to understand what customers are looking for at all times, and things are changing. Customers are more understand better what's happening in the industry. So they'll read things in the press. They'll hear, for instance, about battery storage. They'll hear about smart meters, and they'll want to know what's it all about. So one of the best ways of knowing what to tell to customers and how to engage them is talk to them in the first place.
Yeah.
Find out what it is that interests them and respond to that, rather than thinking as the utility company what the agenda is, and having customers respond to your agenda.
Yeah.
Find out what they're interested in, talk to them on terms that they understand. Use multimedia. Not just a few sentences, but an animated cartoon can give the information much more easily. Ofgem in the UK had a successful project regarding retail competition, where they actually got schools involved. So they started a school project and sent the project material to teachers, where the project involved going home, getting the electricity bills, having a look at them, and then doing some research and seeing how much the family could save by shifting to another electricity company or gas. So that very much made the junior people in the household very aware of the economics. And yeah, working through schools, working with the younger people is going to be the future.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's the next generation, next bunch of bill payers, I suppose. So yeah, started.
But also, don't forget all the segments. Not everybody is on the internet.
Yeah.
Not everybody is living in a country where the language of the country is their first language.
Right.
So making things available to minorities, people who may have reading difficulties, may not understand the language of the country in which they live. I work a lot with some of the agencies that work with some of those people. So there are charities and community groups, involve them, because they'll be able to talk more directly to their constituencies rather than trying as the utility to talk individually to millions of customers, work through others, have ambassadors. If you can persuade a dozen people of what you're doing and train them, they can pass the message on to many more people as well.
It's a very complex situation, isn't it? Because, especially in Asia, you've got different regions, different languages, and within that country you've got different generations with very personalized interests and needs.
Yes.
Should utilities, be employing the services of a third party? Can they do this on their own? Would you suggest that they do this on their own?
I think that all major companies these days have PR professionals, either within the industry, and they use external advisors.
Yes.
And I think it's important that technology changes, smart metering rollout, smart grids, is treated in the same way. That you use the expertise as you would for other things, make it an integrated part of the way you do business.
Let's talk about smart meter policies and the development of these in general. How should these be developed to incorporate the needs of utilities and their customers? What is your suggestion on that?
That's a very good question. Integrating the needs of the utilities and the customers together is always a challenge. And policies generally will come from governments and from regulators, and the whole question of what is the role of government and what is the role of regulator is opened up. Traditional economics will tell you that if something's a good thing, you don't need to regulate to introduce it because the market will work out for itself. However, that's not always so easy to achieve in practice. Smart metering, like other things, and smart grids often involves a capital investment for something of an uncertain return later on. So the role of an infrastructure company like a network business is always to invest in infrastructure now to get a return later. The role of the government and the regulator is to say, well, how should things be financed? Who should be paying for things, protecting the customer, but also making sure that the customer's interests are in the specification. Utilities will be able to make sure that they get out of any kind of implementation from what they're doing themselves. But the two need to be combined. The government and regulators shouldn't just be there to get lowest prices for consumers at the risk of not having the reliability, the quality of supply. Really, it's the long-term interests of consumers. The long-term interests of consumers are served by a well-funded and very strong and sustainable utility industry. The two aren't opposing factors. The two actually can marry and supplement and work together, be complementary to each other.
What do you hope to achieve at this event?
I'm interested in really two sets of things. One is learning. I'm always open to learning about what's happening, and you always learn best from the practitioners in the field. So actually talking to the utility companies, hearing from them in the conference, actually finding out and making sure I've got the knowledge and having the opportunity to ask questions, to get my knowledge, make sure my knowledge is always up to date. The second is networking. It's a people's business consultancy. People buy consultancy from people. They buy consultancy from people who they trust. when I talk at the conference, it's something of a soft sell.
Yeah.
I'm not out there to say, hello, isn't Etrog Consulting great? I just talk about the topic, and people get to understand that, yes, I do know what I'm talking about. I'm marketing at the moment with Power Edge, some training companies that are running in training courses, I should say, that are running in Singapore. There's one running at the end of this month on regulation of electricity networks, and there's one at the end of August on smart meter economics, and a couple of others coming up later in the year. So it's an opportunity for me actually to meet people here who potentially could come to training courses, and they get to meet the trainer. It isn't just a brochure on a website.
Yeah, very interesting. My last question to you. What would your message be? What message would you like to give out to the power sector before you leave?
Sometimes I think that the message the power sector needs is to to know that they're not necessarily all that different from anything else.
Yeah.
Think about other people who serve end-use customers, banks, retailers, Amazon as a successful online business.
Yeah.
There are many businesses that serve customers that are successful. And think about what they would do. If something doesn't make sense that nobody else would do it, don't think that it's something you should do yourselves. But always be able to learn from other industries and think about particularly those who serve consumers, what makes them successful.
Yeah, makes sense to me. David, thank you so much for your time. That's all we have time for, unfortunately. We could go on. But thank you very much for taking time out to come and talk to us, and I trust you'll enjoy the rest of the event. And to our viewers, thank you so much for joining us. There are other videos for you to click on, interviews with both utilities and vendors. We do hope you enjoy those.